So hi, I'm Erica, and this is Rick. Rick Miller. So I'm the manager here for the Embed Digital Lounge. I'm going to be doing the first part, which is showing you guys some web tools that you guys can use to create some multimedia to put in your stories. And then the majority of the workshop is going to be Rick, who's going to show you how to use Lightroom Mobile to edit photos quickly, and then use Premiere Clip to create short, videos. We'll show you how to use a lavalier mic and this microphone and connect it to your phone. I talked to Rachel about this, but there's an equipment room in this building at the bottom floor, LL 103, and they have, I guess they're called phone kits, so that you can check them out and use them to do a short interview or whatever. And we'll show you kind of tips and best practices for recording on your phone so that it's good quality and not just like muffled sound. And so that'll be all in Premiere Clip. Cool? All right, so for the first part, we'll use our computers, and then for the second part, we'll use our phones. Okay? I'm going to get started. Cool. All right, so for the first tool I'm going to show you guys, it's called Infogr.am. So if you guys can go to Infogr.am, that's the URL for the site. Got that? So you guys will need to register for an account, but it's free. So I'll go ahead and let you guys go through that so you can follow along. So basically what Infogr.am is, it allows you to create charts and infographics, as well as apparently maps now. But you can import data from an Excel sheet, or just pull data that you have and create really quick charts that kind of look like this. They're meant to be interactive. You have to pay to be able to embed, but a lot of times what we do is we just take screenshots of what we've made in Infogr.am and then just embed it into our news story or whatever. But if you guys do want to pay for it, you can actually embed an interactive version, and so that just looks like when you hover over things, it'll tell you the percentage, and it's a little more interactive rather than just a static image. But for the most part, being able to take a screenshot of it is pretty good. But besides like pie charts, you can do bar graphs, you can do area graphs, scatter plots, pictorials. So like if you wanted to do like 1 out of 10 people, they have those kind of things. They have hierarchy stuff. If you want to show a pyramid, you can create a table. You can create a word cloud. And yeah, there's a couple other little features. So you can either make a one-off chart, or you can make kind of a long infographic. Was everyone able to make an account? Do you guys want to walk through? So I'm just going to show you guys how to make one, and then we'll go from there. It's a pretty easy tool. Is everyone at this window right here? So it doesn't really matter which one you start with. An infographic will start you with more items to fill in because it's expecting you to create a long story. But if you want to just create a chart or graph, just a one-off chart and graph, you would just hit plus chart and graph. So I pulled some data from this report about Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in prime time and streaming television. I'll just show you guys the report. I didn't give it to everyone, but they kind of visualize some of their data. So they've got some information here, but let's say I want to present it in a story and I only want to pull certain data from this and put it in there. So, and for example, like this one isn't visualized, so maybe that's something I want to visualize and put in my story. So let's go ahead and make this. So we'll go ahead and start with a chart and graph.
Sorry.
Yes.
What's the difference between infographic and chart or graph?
I don't think there's a big difference because once you get in here, you can actually add all of the same elements no matter what. I mean, I think if you start with an infographic, you can actually pick a style. So they give you kind of a theme to start with, and then you can input all the elements, or you can just start with a chart and graph. Well, so why don't we go through an infographic, because that's kind of nice. It just gives you the starting elements. So they give you some themes for free, and then there's some pro themes. But if you go ahead and click one of them that you like, it kind of gives you something to work with, because what it's going to do is create like a long story, which is typically the format that you see a lot of infographics in. So it'll say double click to add title. So, you know, you might put in, and you guys can put in whatever, you don't have to copy this title. But I'm going to put in tokens on the small screen, Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in prime time and streaming television. So you can go ahead and choose, you know, different fonts. I think with the free version, you're limited to the theme that it gives you, what kind of fonts they have. But you can edit the size, you can make it bold, you can, you know, do a lot of different stylings, just like in Microsoft Word. And then usually it'll start you off with just an example chart so you can see what you're doing. So for mine, what I did was I actually put in an image and put in a quote. So I mean, these are just little things that you guys can do to make it a little more customizable. So if you look on the side right here, this is all the things you can add. You can add a chart, you can add a map, you can add text, you can add graphics, you can pull in media, so you could pull in a YouTube video, a Vimeo, things like that. And then here's also where you can pull in data. Let's say you're pulling from an Excel sheet that you have. But for the most part, we're just going to put in data that we have, since it's just one graph. So we're going to go back to this graph. Oh no, sorry, I was going to add the image. So you want to click Add Graphics. So they have some like pre-stock graphics that you can use. They have like icons. Like let's say you wanted a little home. You can drag one in, and then it's pretty easy to just delete something if you don't want it. They also have kind of like a make it half the size. So there's that little button right here that's called narrow, and that just makes it smaller. But we're going to go ahead and upload our own image. So if you go to My Uploads, you can upload an image right here. So if you guys want to pull an image, feel free. I think with the free account, you can only upload up to 10 images. So just keep that in mind. But let's say I pull this image in, and then it's pretty simple. All you have to do is drag it to get it above something else, and just rearrange the order as you go. And then I can go ahead and add some text. So they have different types of text. They have a title, subtitle text, body text, caption text. The one thing that I do want to stress when you guys are making stuff like this, you should always give credit to images that you're using or media that you're linking to. So like this one will allow you to add a link. So in this example, I did add a link to the New York Times, because that's where the photo's from. I'm sure you guys all know as journalists that you should be crediting if you're pulling work from something else. And then I added a quote. So like I said, there's different text options here. So and it's all going to be stylized based off of the theme that you chose. So I might put Constance Wu, and then I can drag this up here. Like that. Do you guys have any questions about that so far? It's pretty simple. And then I'll go ahead and show you guys how to edit a chart. So they like give you just a fill-in chart to start with. So if you go ahead and double click here, you can edit the data of the chart. So for this one, let's do this one. So what I'm pulling from the report is that they have a representation of TV series regulars versus the actual population percentage. So you know, there's many different charts that you can do, and they give you so many options. But I decide to do a side-by-side bar graph. If you go into settings, you can always change the type of graph. So you could have done a stacked graph, but that's maybe not as good visually. You want to think about what's the best format for that. You could do, what was common line? That's a little strange. So, but yeah, you guys can kind of just play with what makes the most sense. And so that's all in the settings section. And then in the edit data section, this is where you put your actual data points. Since I'm comparing two, I have US population and television on the side. If you guys want to try inputting the data, you can see how it looks. If you change your graph to a, what's it called? A grouped bar graph. And then you guys go ahead and edit data. You can put in these data points and, oops, you can see that it'll create the little bar. So yeah, so this is the interactive version. When you hover over, it'll show you like black is 13.3% versus on TV it's 14%, not bad. And then Latino is 17.8% in the population versus on TV it's 5.9%. And what's nice about this graph is you can really see the big difference just by having them side by side. Yeah.
I have a question. When you do those kind of things,
Mm-hmm.
you have to export them in
Yes.
PDF, right?
Yeah, so I think, let me see, download.
I mean, then you lose all this interactivity, all this.
Yeah. So when you go to share and download it for the web as a JPEG, what it does is it puts the percentages in there for you. There is an option to actually embed the interactive, but again, like I said, that's a little bit of a paid version. So this is just, you know, you do lose that, but they do give you a version that is printable and that's static. Yeah, so you don't have the animation, but, you know, if you're trying to create a quick graph that looks nice, this is pretty easy. And then you would just need to upload this image somewhere and then embed it into your new story. Do you guys have any questions about Infogr.am? Oops. Are there other features that you guys are looking for when you're making charts or things like that? I mean, obviously we do have our own workshop where you make custom infographics. That's a little more advanced. But there are, you know, for this one, it's pretty decent, and you can actually do a little more customization, such as changing the colors of things. If you go into settings of a chart, you can switch what colors each thing is, and it gives you the option to put in the hex code. So if you want a specific color, you can put that in. There are some, you can have the legend show or not show. Showing values. Let's see. Yeah, so each chart has a little bit of different settings depending on what you want.
Do you have an example of a story where Infogr.am is used?
You know, I've seen it in a lot of places, but I never save them. But yeah, I actually have seen a lot of organizations use Infogr.am. And I've seen them pay for it, so it has the interactive features, so it just depends. But yeah, it's definitely used because they also have options to like export it as code and put it right in their stories. So, but yeah, I'm trying to think of like a story that you guys did that could use something like this. Oops, USC.
Or you could look at, yeah, actually, so that Chinese chain restaurants.
Yeah.
We have, yeah.
Oh, you've pulled from LA Times. Yeah. So like they also have, I think you can do a map. Yeah, you can add maps. Apparently there's only two options. There's the US states or the world map. If you want more countries, you'd have to upgrade. But there are like some other nice features like a map or word cloud. I'll show you guys the next tool. It has a little more flexibility versus Infogr.am, but this is like a quick way to create a chart. Cool. Any questions about that? Okay, cool. The next thing I'm going to show you guys is NightLab. So Northwestern University has they have a community of designers, developers, students, and educators working on experiments that kind of push journalism, and they've created some really cool tools that are also free and really easy to use. So if you just search NightLab, it'll come up, or if you go to nightlab.northwestern.edu, it'll take you to this page here. and they have 4 different storytelling tools. And I've actually seen, they have examples of organizations that have used them, so I can show you. Like the LA Times has used these resources. But they have 4 tools. They have Juxtapose. I won't show you guys how to use this one because it's pretty self-explanatory. Basically what it does is you take 2 photos that are very similar but maybe from 2 different time periods. So for this one, this is the Sochi, them building the Olympics. So you can see the before the Olympics and then after the Olympics. And so it's like a very impactful way to show before and after. I was thinking about some news examples, like if you want to show like Hurricane Harvey, you want to show like before the devastation and after the devastation, this would be a really cool way to do that. Of course, there's a little more thought that has to go into it because the impact is from it being in the same position. So this use case is a little harder. You'd have to really know, plan ahead of time. Like if you were going to show like the dance school being built, you'd want to show before where it's just like dirt and then afterwards where it's finalized, like the final building. And basically when you go to use the tool, it'll show you, like you just have to upload it to like Dropbox or whatever and then put the left and right image in here. And they make it super easy for you. And then you just preview it. And then if you publish it, it'll give you a embed code. So I'm assuming that you guys can put embed codes in your news stories. You would just grab this iframe code and just put it right into your story. So they take the work out of it. You don't have to code anything. You just have to have your 2 images and upload it and then embed that photo in. And they have some examples here, like ESPN. Let's see what they did. Here they did Floyd Mayweather 1998 versus 2015. That's kind of fun. So you could do people.
That is cool.
Yeah, that's really cool actually. That's a great use of it versus like having to have made an image beforehand or thought about it. You can just, find similar positions that they're in. I
cool.
like that.
It's interactive and people.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Love that interactivity.
I'm trying to think what other funny use cases. If you're eating dim sum and then there's the food and then the food's gone. I don't know. You could use it in fun ways. So that's the first tool. And then SoundSite is to put audio into your stories. So what's really cool about this one, I'll show you an example. What it does is as you're going through the story, click on a different one. Oops. As you go through the story, you'll see little play buttons. So this is where you would create a little audio clip and embed it into your story. And then when you click, as you're reading it, you'll click play and then you can hear audio from what you're talking about in the story. Of course, the internet's not loading on me. Okay, it says these stories have examples and then I don't see anything in it. Oh, well, that's a little different way to use it. Try this one. Okay, so this is what'll happen. Like you'll say, you'll be reading it, and then they have a soundbite from the person, and then if you click on it. So it's kind of cool. You can actually hear the person saying it and reading it. Another way you could use it is if like you're describing a place and, like let's say you're at a dim sum place and you're describing it and you record some audio of just like things clanking around, like then they get the sense that they're actually there. And you can put that in line with the story. So that's how SoundSite works. It's, if you scroll down, you can upload the audio somewhere. So you can use SoundCloud, web server, and then once you load it, it actually also gives you options to clip it. So you don't have to clip the audio. you can say, I want this in point to this out point. So they have an example you can use. So let's say I uploaded this clip and I only want 30 seconds to a minute. I can actually give a start and end time. I don't have to actually edit the audio clip at all. And then you just create the clip, and then you would put that into your story. Cool. And then the other two, I'm only going to walk through timeline because that one's the most complicated. StoryMap is the third one. And what this does is it makes something over a map. So like this is showcased in the US Manifest Destiny. So as you click through, it takes you through the story. It's kind of like a slide, but also you're going through based on geography. And again, this is all pre-created. All you have to do actually is upload the image and give them the text. And then NightLab, their developers have created, so it makes this. So it's really, really cool. And you can kind of see in the corner over here, as I click through, it kind of shows you where you are in the map. So the red dot is kind of moving as I go through these slides. And if I go back to the beginning, I can see the full kind of journey of the story. This one's very, very particular. You don't want to be jumping from US to China. The graphics just get kind of crazy if you're like jumping from one location to another far location. So it does work better if you're kind of staying in one central, like either a state or one little area. But it's a pretty cool tool if you have something that goes with a storyline. I thought this one was kind of fun. I think they uploaded their own map of like Game of Thrones, and they showed Arya's journey over Westeros, which was kind of fun. And you know, it's not crazy animations, but you kind of get, oh, and then she went here, and then she went there. And StoryMap works in, let's see, you make a story map, and what it does, it connects with your Google account. And then you add a headline, and then you add slides. So each slide has a destination point. Let me see, test. And you can upload a media, and then you can say the location. How do you... Yeah, so I won't spend too much time on this because I don't want to run into Rick's time too much. And then the last one is Timeline.js. I think this one is probably the most useful and easy to use for most cases. And if you guys want to walk through this one with me, I'll go through it quickly. What it does is it's based off of timeline, so this one's about women in computing. And as you click through, you can see that right now we're reading about Ada Lovelace from 1816 to 1852. And then if I go next, it talks about the first computer, talks about where it happened, and then it gives me kind of a location of a map. So within timeline, you can embed Google Maps, you can embed videos, so I can watch a video within my timeline.
Trajectory of a shell that took 30.
I can embed a Wikipedia page. You can embed a SoundCloud as well. So let's say you have an audio interview and you want to put that on the timeline. And you can jump from the timeline by just clicking down here. And I think like CNN has made one before. Let's see. No, it's videos. Oh, it's right here. So they did, this is pretty timely, about North Korea's nuclear ambitions. So a timeline of kind of, here they did the treaty, here was their early warnings. So it's really good if you want to get a sense of, you know, someone's story arc from the beginning to the end. So I'll show you guys quickly. So when you go to each of the projects, like I said, it's all the same. You go to click, it'll give you exactly what you should do. So if you guys want to follow along, you can do this one. You'll go ahead and click on make a timeline. And then what it does is it does everything through Google Spreadsheets. So they give you a template, and all you have to do is fill in the information. So if you click on get the spreadsheet template, it'll ask you if you would like to make a copy of the template. So you just go ahead and make a copy. And then I pulled one of your guys' stories about, I'm going to botch this name, Liu Xiaobo. So I saw you guys did a story about him, and it would kind of make sense to do like a fun timeline. It was about his death recently. So maybe you want to tell like from when he was born, then talk about you know, all of his struggles with the government and when he was arrested, to maybe the last thing being about his death. So once you make a copy of the timeline.js template, this exists in your drive. So what it does is it creates a Google Sheet right here. So if you go to your drive, you'll see copy of official template, and you can go to timeline.js and always just make a timeline, and it'll do it each time. So like, let's say I want to create this one, I will name it. And then the tool is very cool. You literally just put in the year, month, day, and time. So you can have a start time and an end time. And then, so like for the first line right here in Excel, it's the headline. So if you noticed in this example, this was their headline, Women in Computing, and then it just has the text. So you can either do it that way, or you can start off with an event right off the bat. So what I did was I just pulled, if you guys want to go to his Wikipedia page, I just pulled a bunch of his copy. So like, let's say you want to give like a little bio as the first slide about him. You'll put in the information there. You want to give it a headline, right? So you want to put his name, maybe like story of his life or something. And then in the next box, it asks you to put the media. So what I did was I uploaded an image of him to Imgur. So you could do this with, you know, Flickr or whatever image hosting service. Then you go ahead and paste the media there. And then, like I said, you want to give a spot for media credit. So if you pulled that image from somewhere, you want to give credit. And then a media caption. And that's all you have to do. And then so I want to give, so then maybe the next one I could say, you know, Li Xiaobo is born, and I want to give it a specific date. So I would give it December 28th, 1955. So you don't have to give an end time if it's just one date, but if it's a period of time, then you want to put a start time and an end time. So for this one, I would just put 1955. The month is December, so it's 12, and then 28. You know, and maybe you'll put some text there. I'm just going to copy the same text. And then, let's say you want to talk about how he was arrested, and you have a YouTube video on it. Go ahead and put this here. And then all you have to do is grab the YouTube URL. So if you guys want to just grab any video, you can plug it into the media. And then, so like this happened between June 2nd, 1989 to June 5th, 1989. So I will edit that. June 2nd. So it even allows you to put a specific time if you had like 12 o'clock or 5 o'clock, but we'll just stick with dates. 1989, June 5th. And we'll call it. And then let's say you want to end with his death. So obviously I'm skipping a bunch of things, but just to show you guys how quickly it comes together. So he passes away. You know, maybe that's what you want the headline to be. And then let's say I found this SoundCloud link. I'll just put it there. And then I'll give it an end date, or a date here. July 17, July 13. Cool. So then once you've inputted all of your timeline stuff and it just exists in this spreadsheet, all you have to do is go to File, Publish to Web, and just publish the entire document. Then once you publish it, you want to grab this URL at the top. And all of those instructions are here. So first it tells you to get the spreadsheet template, and then once you're done creating your timeline, you click Publish to Web, and then you plug in that URL right here, and then you can go ahead and preview. So here is, our little timeline. It plugged and it stylized everything. Now here's the video, and all I did was grab that YouTube link and put it right in that cell, and it embedded it here. And then go to the, this SoundCloud clip about him passing away. And then what's really cool is you can just kind of drag over this timeline also to go through all of your events. And so this is something you could maybe embed at the top of your story if it's about, someone's life, or about a series of events like, this North Korea one that CNN created. It's cool, guys. Cool. So now for the next hour and a half, I think this will take a lot more time, is actually going through the video and the photo editing. I'll have Rick go through that. And you ready, Rick?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Do like a 2 or 3 minute break.
Was everyone able to download the apps? Yeah. Cool.
And those that came in late, we're downloading Lightroom and Embed Code on the App Store.
Oh, I thought we were doing Excel spreadsheet. No, I was kidding.
All right.
I keyed. Oh.
Ready? You want to
Yeah.
start with PowerPoint?
Yeah, I'll start with the PowerPoint and then make sure I have everything here. Where's the little plastic bag for this?
I took it.
Okay, I'll just put this there. That. Let me split my gum out. I'm a teacher, so I can chew gum in class. Okay, so welcome everyone. It is Friday. Y'all gonna have fun this weekend? They don't seem so enthusiastic.
I just talked at them for half an hour, so.
It's Friday. It's the end of the... Okay, anyway. So welcome to adding multimedia to news stories on the fly. I'm covering the second half. I'm the fabulous Rick Miller. Before I started teaching at USC, I used to work at Adobe. My name's on the credit screen for Premiere Pro and Photoshop. But USC stole me away from Adobe. Plus, you know what? I was always on the road, and I live in Pasadena, so it's much easier for me to come to USC than it was to travel all over the world. So we're going to cover I'm going to cover three things today. First is recording media before we even get into the applications. It's important to be cognizant of certain functionalities, certain features on your phones, your mobile devices that you should be aware of before you start recording. Then we're going to look at Adobe Premiere Clip and then Lightroom Mobile. So first, let's look at things that we need to be aware about when we are recording media to our mobile devices, whether it's an Android phone, an iPhone, a tablet, doesn't matter. There's certain things that are going to be consistent across all of those workflows. So we're going to look at aspect ratio, audio, and then quickly talk about lighting. So, how many of you have ever seen this when you open up your mobile device or your tablet and you can choose video or photos and you're like, what the heck is this? It's all Greek to me. And so these are settings on your camera that you should be aware of. And why is this important? Well, if you're going to be working with different videos, it's great if we have consistency. And when I say, consistency, these are the resolutions. 640 by 480, this is a 4:3 aspect ratio, which I'll talk about in a second. There's 1280 by 720. How many of you have ever gone on YouTube and you'll see videos that say 720p or 1080p? That's what these settings are about, and I'll explain them a little more in detail. So what is aspect ratio? The aspect ratio of an image or video describes the proportional relationship between its width and its height. It is commonly expressed as two numbers separated by a colon, as in 16 by 9. So what setting do we choose, and why shouldn't we mix aspect ratio? For the most part, I'd recommend 1920 by 1080 if you're going to be going for the web. High. This is full high definition. You can downsample if you're going to go to the web to 720, or you can even go up to ultra high definition. But the thing is, you'll notice that for ultra high definition down to high definition, they all have the same aspect ratio. But this other one, 640 by 480, has a 4:3 aspect ratio. Who cares, and why does that impact what we're doing with our smartphones or a tablet-based device? Here's why. If I capture video at 720p, 1080p, or ultra high definition, all of three of these have the same aspect ratio. 480p does not, and so what that means is that if we have a video that we didn't shoot high enough quality, we need to make it larger, upsample it, we scale it up. If I took that 480p, which has a different aspect ratio than 720p or 1080p or 4K, what do you notice right here on the sides? We scale it up, but you ever go on and see like video that you have these the black bars on the side, but then there's another one where it's larger? That's because the aspect ratio didn't match. And so that's why it's important when you choose it. My recommendation is to choose an aspect ratio that's 16 by 9 on there. But if I took that 720p, and let's say I shot it 720p and I needed to upsample it or make it larger, that 720p scales fits into that 1080p aspect ratio. My recommendation is not to shoot a low resolution and then try to upsample. You want to have more information to start with. It's better to have more information and then make it smaller than to not have it, because if you try to invent pixels in your photos or videos that don't exist, it's going to look pixelated. It's going to look blurry. So now that we looked at aspect ratio, let's look at audio. So how can I improve the quality of the audio being recorded from our mobile device? Well, the microphones on here, they're fine if we're making a phone call or whatever, just capturing something really simple. However, if we want to be capturing professional quality or nicer audio than what's on here, then we have options. And let me show you what kind of options that we have. We have options where we can do mics that are dedicated to a mobile device that you could just plug in, and then we have professional microphones that weren't meant for the mobile device that we would actually use. We would go ahead and use some hardware to go ahead and connect it. So the first one is audio. There is a lavalier, and this one is a really good one. It's a Rode Smartlav Plus, and this will plug directly into your smartphone without having to use a one of these hardware converter devices. So the Smartlav, it's inexpensive, and what a lavalier mic does, like if I was going to shoot video of you and I was here and I was having you talk, and there's ambient noise going on, like this is not going to sound so hot. But if I went ahead and I took a lavalier mic and I connected it, you're going to be my model later on, but you have to keep your eyes open. So long we have, it's a Photoshop class. So we would connect this, and this way the audio, being recorded into here is going to be much better sounding if it's coming from here than if it's trying to record everything around. So we're going to have clearer audio. and this would go directly into there. The next one that would go directly into our mobile device would be the Rode Video Mic Me. And so, like I said, we don't need a converter. We would just use it's a shotgun one. And so, what is this shotgun, mic, and why would it be important for what we're doing? So, I'm shooting video, or you're shooting video. You're trying to, interview someone. All this ambient noise is going on. But let's say I'm also want to interview Erica. Well, I only have one lavalier mic, and then I don't want to have to start getting a bunch of lavalier mics, and then it becomes cumbersome. I just want to, use this for convenience, but I want good audio. So the lavalier mic is great for, targeting his audio, but now I have two. And I have a fan over here, and I have ambient noise going on. This is where this shotgun mic would be great, because now I can connect it to, my smartphone, and when Erica's talking, I can bring the video here. Then when you start talking, I move it here. It's a shotgun mic, so it's picking up, what? Yes.
What if we have the iPhone 7, 8, 10, which doesn't include anymore the jack?
That was the next. I would get an answer. No, just kidding. No. So that's a question. So it doesn't have on the new ones. Do you have the new one? Yeah. On the new ones, you're gonna have to get a converter.
But is the converter working? First of all, those kind of things they would not stick because the converter is like this. But does it work also for the audio?
They have. Okay, so they're coming out with. So that's a really good question. So they're coming out with new microphones for the iPhone, and so these are for like the Android, and for the iPhone they'll plug in those jacks. But for the other ones, they should be coming out with them soon. But yeah, it's a good question. So this I could then use the shotgun mic to do whatever it is that I want to. So let's say you already have, you've already invested in professional microphones, whether it's a professional lavalier mic or, a regular, or shotgun mic. So you already have those, and those aren't dedicated to the phone. And so that's a really big difference, because these ones that I just showed you right now, those are dedicated, the plug is dedicated to those devices. However, if you already have a professional, microphone, whether it's a shotgun, lavalier mic, or whatever, you would use one of these, converters. And actually, the cool thing is when you check out here at Annenberg, they already have it. They already have the the little converters for you. I just happen to, which this for some reason didn't work on my Android device, so I just use the Rode, RODE. I like those. And so there's two different ones for the Rode. There is a very simple one. It's just like what you have here. I would take my microphone, and I would take the microphone wherever the heck it is, and then I would plug it into the converter, and then I would plug this into my phone, and now that external microphone will work perfectly. Now if I wanted to use headphones on that, get a little, which is actually what you have, because if you want to listen to the audio, what's going on, is it clear, do I need to adjust the mic at all? This is what's great, because here at Annenberg you have the ability to not only connect it from the microphone, but you can also put some headsets on, and so now you can hear where you need to adjust the microphone. And so that's what I have for my Android here, okay, which also works for the iPhone. Okay, so then you can add external audio, such as the Rode, which is a higher end shotgun one, and it looks a little like this. So it just really kind of depends upon how much of an imprint footprint you want to have when you're shooting. You just want it very simple, then just get a small little shotgun mic or a lavalier. If you have some space to work with, then you can get a higher end. So it just depends on what it is that you want to do. Okay, any questions about that? Okay, so
Or just a note for the students, we have a lavalier mic and a hand mic that you can check out from us, but we're also available, or we can use the Annenberg equipment room, which is downstairs. So if you want to check those out, just let me know.
cool. Yeah, awesome. And that's the difference between the microphones, is that there are microphones that are dedicated to the mobile device that plug directly into it, and then there are ones that are professional microphones that you will need, some type of converter, which Annenberg already provides with it, and it also has the headphones as well. So whichever choice you want to do. Okay, so then I'm just going to quickly talk about lighting because I want to get into Premiere Clip and Lightroom. So how can I improve the quality of light being recorded from my mobile device? There are lighting devices that you can get, and really inexpensive ones that you can just attach to your phone same way and light it up. But one of the things that I've seen like time and time again when people are shooting video or photographs is the lighting. The lighting just doesn't look good for a variety of reasons. One of the biggest things that I see is backlighting. I had one of the students that they were shooting a video of a bunch of people. Those people were not lit up, but the background was lit up very, very nice. And so I'll try to make this as easy as possible. So there's something called dynamic range. And what that means is that your mobile device can only capture so many stops of information, from your highlights with details to like shadows. Like our eyes, like we can simultaneously see detail in the highlights and detail in the shadows. The mobile device, is going to have a very limited range of what we can see. So if you're shooting, video or photos on your mobile device, it's very important if the background is really light and the person is, in shadows, that you want to adjust them. Either one, add some light to it, or two, if that, put them where the light is. And a really cool thing that I always do to make sure like where the light is, I take the palm of my hand and I take it and I'm like, where is it in shadow? And then boom. So now I know that it's light right here. And that's a very simple way, because I have a light meter, but just take your hand. If it's in shadow, then you're not, okay, I don't want to shoot the video there. But then you bring it, and right here, now it's nice and light, so I can shoot this way. So if you don't have lights, position them where your hand, the palm of your hand is light. Just this quick, easy thing. Any questions about that? Okay. So what the heck is Adobe Premiere Clip? Adobe Premiere Clip is a free mobile video editing app for the iPhone, iPad, and Android devices. And the great thing about this is that not only can you edit your video on your smartphone, on your tablet-based device, but you can also share it to Premiere Pro, so the professional video application. Why would you want to do that? So let's say I'm shooting video and I'm like interviewing Erica, and I'm like, I want to do this video, and I do it, and I record the video, get my audio, I'm like, great. And then I'll just I can either finish it right then and there, or I can do some editing in Premiere Clip, and then if I want to go in and start adding more special effects and more complex things, then I can easily hand it off to Premiere Pro via my Creative Cloud. So we're just going to actually go ahead and start demoing Premiere Clip. Okay, so we went ahead and captured some photos and video, on the tablet and then on my, other device. And so the idea is when you're working with Premiere Clip, Adobe Premiere Clip, is that you capture content on your mobile device and you work with it right then and there. That's the simplicity of it. However, some of the stuff, I shot on here, I can put it on my Adobe Cloud account, I can put it on Dropbox, I can put it on, if I'm on an Android device, Google Drive or Google Photos, and then I can just go into Premiere Clip and then access all those photos in that video. So whether I captured it with this device or whether I captured it with another mobile device, it's very easy to work with these. So let's go ahead and we will launch Adobe Clip. I go ahead in here, and it's very, very simple. To the left, or if I turned it this way, it would be on the right hand, So I go ahead here, and I'm just going to rotate this really quickly. On the left-hand side, I click on that little plus icon, and this gives me the ability to load my media from my iPad, from Lightroom Professional, if I want to sync with that, or Lightroom Mobile. I can log into my Creative Cloud account and access all those files. And that's the advantage of working with the Creative Cloud, is that I can share assets across all of my devices, whether they're mobile devices, desktop, or laptop. I can also go to Dropbox. I could take a photo or video, and if this was an Android-based device, then I could do it from Google Drive or Google Docs. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab content off of the iPad. So I see I have a camera roll, and then I have videos. So I'll just click onto the camera roll. And so I see all of the media that's on this tablet. So I can choose which content I want to bring in. So I'm going to say, I'll choose this, and I'll just cherry pick which ones that I want. And then I'll just select the video. And oh, I took a picture of you while you were. And then I have the USC Annenberg logo, which I could actually use as bumper, but I'll skip on that right now. And then at the bottom, you see where it says add. It tells me I have 14 media images. They're both photos and video, and that's the great thing about working with Premiere Clip is that I can work with photos and video at the same time. I click add. So then it gives me the ability to work automatically or freeform. If you just want to capture this content, add, audio to this, and you're done, then automatic is the way to go. But then I'm going to show you freeform in just a second. So it says clip generates a great video for you. Edit to the beats of your soundtrack. You customize the pace, music, and order. I should probably turn this on. And so I'll just click on automatic for first. So now it's creating a video. It's going to create that video. I'm like, okay, great. And then I can play this. I'm on the wireless, so it's like, it's thinking if you look in the upper left-hand corner. So it's going to, play that once it gets a good connection. It's zooming into the photos. Going through all those photos. So what I want to do is I'm just going to stop this really quickly. And if I want to change the music, I can go ahead here and I can click on replace soundtrack. And I can either go to Premiere Clip themes, which are royalty free. If I click here, you have a whole bunch of different, Right now it's not playing it. Let me turn this up for a second.
Or did you say these are all royalty free?
These are all royalty free. So yeah, so you can use, oopsie, trying to get the, let's try this again. Okay, so we're going to have, because we're connected to so many different things, I guess the audio might not be as connected on here. But yeah, we just go click here to the themes, you would play that, you'd select which one, you would click on play, and then it would play. Right now the audio is not coming through on here, but you choose whichever one that you want. And then you can also, like I said, load. If you had albums, you would go through here and choose those. Let me just click cancel. But the cool thing is you decide where that audio wants to come in. You see right here, I can drag this, wherever it is that I want to. And I say, okay, start at this point.
Oh, that's going to cause the echo.
Yeah, let's not do that.
That's so weird. Okay, sorry, I thought I could make the
Okay.
audio go up.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, so I'd go ahead here and I just choose when I want to come in that. But then I can also go inside here and I can, increase the pace of that, make it, faster or slower. And that's really cool. But then you're like, you know what? I didn't want to start with this photo. I actually wanted to start with that video. And so it's very easy. You go down to this one right here. It lets me change the order. So I click. And this is where I can change the sequence. And then it's as simple as pressing down and grabbing it and dragging it. That's most of what you'll do in Premiere, Premiere Clip. As with Premiere Pro, just grab it and drag it. So that's the order there. I'm like, you know what? I want this to be the second. I grab it and I drag it and I move it over. Beep. And then when I'm done, I click done. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm like, you know what? I really want a photo of Erica. So I go ahead here and I click on that plus button. I say, take a photo or video. Say hi. You want a photo or video? Okay, so I take a photo. I'll use that photo. And so now it's imported there. You know what? We're going to have you use number 1 because you're number 1. So now Erica is in first, and then I go ahead and click done. And then then we're good to go. Then I can play this. And it goes through there, plays that. And like I said, I could change the speed of that however, if I want to. And if I don't like something, I just, hold the... See when I click on something, I have this little X. If Erica's like, nah, I don't like that photo, I can select it, click X, and the trash can pops up and goes beep. And then I'm done. And then when I want to export this, I click right here. I can save this finished video to my camera roll. I can save it to the Adobe Creative Cloud so I can work with this, wherever I want to. I can save it to Dropbox. I can publish this and share this with other people. This is really awesome. I like to shoot stuff on Premiere Clip just when I'm out and about, make some changes, make some editing. Then when I get home, I can click, send to Premiere Pro, and then it'll send that entire project to Premiere Pro. I can go ahead and I can make my adjustments accordingly. Then I can also share on YouTube, share on Twitter. And the great thing about this is that you don't have to know, what settings to use. If I go ahead here to YouTube, I'd have to actually log in to YouTube, and then I can click on it, and then it'll go ahead and save out to, do I want it public, do I want it private, do I want it unlisted? But I would need to sign in to my YouTube account to go ahead and publish this. So I'll cancel that, and I'll close that. And so that is how we do it with the auto one. So let me go ahead and delete this project, and I'll just show you how to do have a little more control over there. Oh, and additionally down here, there's these 3 things: my projects, community, and publish. So right now I just deleted it, so I have nothing here. Oh, did you have a question?
No.
Okay. And then community, if I click on community, this is where we can see other videos that people have used with Adobe Premiere Clip. And it's kind of cool. So you can click on it and you say, okay, this is... And there's a title. We're actually going to create a title. So it has audio and it has music on there. It's really cool. Like I said, we're not hearing the audio right now. But you can see all this, and they actually put a filter. So there are filters that we can apply to these images. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'll click done on here. And there's publish. Anything that we've published, it shows us our published content. So I'm just going to go back to my projects. I'll click on the plus icon. I'm going to do it for my iPad. I'll go back to my camera roll. And then it goes in the order in which you clicked on it. So if I'm like, okay, I want this, this will be the first one that shows up. And then I'm just going to start, cherry picking which ones that I want to show up. I'll choose these ones. There are 5. I'll click add. And I'm going to choose Freeform. This is where I have a little more control over this. So now it loads it up, and as I indicated, the order in which you click on those in your camera roll is the order in which they show up. So now I'm like, okay, great. We have, this video, and if I can play this. Okay, so we can't hear the audio because I'm going to show you the difference between the audio without the microphone and the microphone. But what we can do is kind of really, really cool here is if we click on this video, we have our, the ability to trim it. We have in and out points. And my recommendation is when you shoot video, you want to give yourself some breathing room on the beginning and at the end. And so if I'm going to do an interview, I might want to have like 3 or 4 seconds before the person starts talking where I'm recording, recording the video. So I don't want to have the video just like start automatically. I might, but if I wanted to.
I'm going to try and switch the audio.
Okay.
But you keep talking, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, so I want to give myself some, some flexibility if I want to, not come in immediately. This is where the video begins, and an out point, this is where the video ends. It's fine if the action.
It's coming through the iPad.
Okay.
Not the
Well, that's fine. It's like
Welcome to the
Oh, cool. Perfect. Okay, great. So if I go ahead here to this video, I'm going through here and I click on it, and then I click on there and I start to move this around. I can see where the video begins. Let me click on here really quickly. So I'll play it. It's taking a second. It's thinking. So when the video starts to play, I can see that I have a couple of seconds at the beginning that I actually don't need. And so what I'll do is I'll click on the video, and then I'll take this in point right here, and I'll move this to right before Safari starts talking, and I'll bring it right there. And now that is my in point. That is the beginning. I didn't need the stuff, at the very beginning. And so right now there's a connection issue. But then once I got that, I'm like, okay, great. Then I can just take my hand and I can move this, and you can see right down here, I move it to the part of the video that I don't need, or that to where it ends. I'm like, okay, this is going to be my out point. So now I've set an in point and an out point, and it's thinking on me, but that's fine. And so then I can, and notice down here at the bottom, it tells me how long those clips are. So in this case, this is 13 seconds. If I start trimming it, it's going to be shorter. The photos are 3 seconds each by default. I can change that very easily. So I'm like, okay, great, I have that. Let me click onto the photo, and the photo, it says 3 seconds. If I wanted this one to last a little longer, I take the out point. Oops, oh, now this shows up. So I go here and I change the out point. And notice as soon as oh, now it's playing the first one. So it's thinking on me. So I just go ahead and I click on this one, and I can change, the out point of that, extend that, and then I change the different ones, whichever ones, if I want them longer or not. And so this should not be 3 seconds. So I'll extend this out. Then here's a really cool thing. If I'm like looking at this photo right here, and I say, you know what, I want to change the exposure of that, I can click on the exposure for the video or the photo, and I click on here to this little icon right there, and I can increase the overall exposure of that, or I can bring the detail up in the shadows, and I like that. If I want to, I can click over here to this one and do the same thing. So maybe I want some detail in the shadows. I click over here. And what is the difference between exposure and shadows? Exposure increases the exposure over the entire image. It's a global exposure change. Whereas shadows just looks to the shadow areas, the areas with detail in the shadows. And let me bring it here. So let's look at it. It's taking a little longer. So let's look at here before in this area. And then if I drag the shadows to the right, it's going to take a second because our connection is a little bit slow. But in a second, it's going to lighten up once the connection gets a little better. So, okay, so I can make my adjustments. And then another really cool thing that I can do is if I go ahead here and click on that little gear icon, I can make changes to the entire project. I could say I want a specific look. So if I click right here for look, there are all my different filters that I can use. Remember that one video that I showed you earlier that had filter applied to it. So I can if I wanted to make everything black and white, I could do that. Film noir. If I wanted to choose whatever it is that I wanted to, let me just choose a wacky one. So I apply that, and then when it's going to apply it to everything. Right now it's not showing up right here, but when I start to play it, it applies this to everything. So this way you have a consistent color theme applied to your content. So then I can just click back on there. Then I can crossfade between clips. This is really nice. So instead of just having a photo or video transition, just a hard transition from one to the other, you can have it look very nice. It fades from one image into the next. And then for photos, if you just want your photo there and just crossfade, that's fine. But if you want to actually kind of zoom in a little bit, are you all familiar with Ken Burns? Okay, so Ken Burns is he did a documentary on Civil War. He's does like amazing like video editing. It's called the Ken Burns effect, where it'll have still photo, it'll zoom in, zoom out, move around. And so this is the default is photo motion. So just kind of the photo, it zooms into the photo. It gives a little bit more interactivity. So that's on by default. If you wanted to have a video bumper, this is where you would take a graphic, a PNG document that you can have, either at the beginning or at the end of your video. You can go ahead and you can do that. So then I have that. Now if I want to change the audio at all, I click here, and this is where I can change these clips as well. Yeah, the Wi-Fi, but that's fine. But notice something now. Notice that my video, that changed the way that I want to. I'm like, okay, great. So now I have everything that I want. I can also, oops, let me click here really quickly. So if I just want to view this without seeing, the real estate on the sides, I can just click right here if I want to. And now it goes black. Oh, I need to retrim it. So now it's zooming in. So what I want to do is I want to add a title to this and retrim this. So I can just click right here at the very bottom and add a new title. So I'll click on add a new title. And so we will go ahead and oh, now the audio works. So I'll put hello world, and then you can choose your text color, you can choose the background color. Now, there's a video that's happening before, or there's a video that's happening before this title. How can I get this title to the front spot? Exactly, just drag and drop it. I just press down, I go ahead there, and now I'm actually going to click back on this video because right here you can see that video is only 3 seconds. So I was having a connection issue. So I'll just go ahead and I'll move this really quickly. It's kind of freaking out on me right now, but that's fine. But so I'll click on here, and I don't want to see, the real estate, so I will just click in the upper right-hand corner to collapse that, and then I can play this. Yeah, so I need to retrim that. So then it plays it. Not a very, Any questions about that? Cool. So I can go back and I can close it. And like I said, anytime I want to edit something, I just click on it, and then it shows me where my in and my out points are. If I click here, I can extend this. Right now it's freaking out on me right now because of the connection, but it'll be fine. And then when I want to, when I'm done with this, then I go ahead and I click, and I can save that to my camera roll. I can save that to the Creative Cloud. I can save it to the Dropbox. I can publish and share this, Premiere Pro, YouTube, Twitter, just like that. So any questions about that? Okay, cool. So that is Premiere Clip, and let me close out of this, and now I will, and here it is, and the cool thing is that it's always going to be there, and so, it'll always be there, and so I can go ahead and see, which projects I have. I can come back to them and revisit them. If I want to, I can go back here, and I can, delete that project, or if I just double click on it and stuff, I can go back and I can, re-edit this. So right now, like I said, things are going, let me try this. See if this works. Okay, so now I'm able to add time to it. So I'm able to re-edit that as I see fit. I set my in and my out points, get it the way that I want. But I'll just close this. Okay, so let's go ahead and we will go. Oh, another thing really quickly, if I click on to preferences, this is where I can go ahead and I can, if I want to add a bumper, I can, this is like the Adobe, this is the bumper that, you know, Adobe Premiere Clip has. But if you click custom, you can go ahead and upload a PNG file or a video file and put it, you know, load it on your Creative Cloud or your Dropbox account, and you can select it, and then you can have that bumper play at the very end. Cool. So let me go ahead back to, let me go ahead to Lightroom Mobile. Lightroom Mobile is awesome. I use it like all the time. Lightroom Mobile allows us to work with our photos, you know, edit our photos, and then export them out however we want to, or we can share them with other applications. Okay, so I'm here, and when I'm looking down at the very bottom, I have camera roll, and then I also have, you know, so if I have camera roll, or if I, oops, let me click here, I can create a collection, but I'm going to click on, right here, I'll click on camera roll, and I can select, you know, whatever photos that I want there, or I can say, you know what, I want to create a brand new collection. I will call this USC. I click OK. So now I have this collection called USC. It has 0 photos in it. I would like to add photos in there. So I'll go ahead and I will click on that. It says no photos available. All I need to do, I can either click to add photos, or I can take a picture. You know, so I'll click to add photos. I can do it from camera roll or from Lightroom Photos. Lightroom Photos are going to be, if I have my desktop application, I want to sync these up. And on my phone, I sync the photos up all the time. So I'll click on Lightroom Photos, and then, or what did I? Oh, did I? What did I say? Oh, yeah. Yeah, camera roll. So I go to camera roll. It says zoom in and out, pinch and spread in the grid to adjust the photo sizes. I'm like, okay. So what I like to do is I'm going to scroll down here, and you know what? I'll use this one. I want to make that nicer. Then I'll come down here, look for which one? That one, and I will choose one that needs to be a bit nicer. Choose this one, and then maybe this one. Okay, so I got, oh, no, we're gonna beep. And the cool thing is I can turn them off and on as I see fit. I'll add those 2 photos. So now they come in, and I'd like to make some changes to it. So do you want to see color photo first, or black and white image first? Black and white? Okay, color it is. No, so I'll go ahead here, and I'll click on this photo, and it's kind of dull, and I want to add, you know, some dramatic, you know, effects to it. So when we're presented here, we see right down here at the very bottom, right down here, we have these thumbnails. These are going to have all the photos that are available to me in that collection. If I have a bunch, I can just scroll through here. So I'm like, okay, I like that. So what I do is, like, first thing is, if I click here, right here, I can, which is there by default, this is where I can change the lighting of this. So I want to change the exposure, the contrast, the highlights, the coloring of that. And so I'm actually going to go to color right now, and I'm going to start with black and white. So I'm going to click black and white, and it does like a dull black and white. But I like contrast. I like, you know, when I used to shoot black and white film, and I used to develop and process everything, like, I would add a lot of contrast to that. And so I like doing that digitally as well. So I have it as black and white. And so if I go right here to where it says mix, this is really cool. This is where I can start, you know, where it says, right down here it says gray mix. Even though this is a black and white image, there are still color values in there. And if I want to impact, like, the panchromatic response, which is those colors that are still in there. So what color is the sky? yeah, it's blue or cyan. So I can go ahead and click on cyan, and I can chart, if I want to make that, I say, okay, is this blue or is it, cyan? Watch what happens if I choose blue. I can make that sky lighter or darker, and it's just impacting that color range. Pretty cool? But let's say you didn't know. I'm like, I don't know what color that is. This thing right here, this target adjustment tool, if you click on that, and then you go into your photo, and then, like I said, okay, I click on there, and then wherever I drag in the image, if I drag straight up, it lightens it. If I drag it straight down, make sure you get on there, it will darken that. So I've got control over those color ranges, and so it's not affecting the rest of the image. And I like that. So I click on here and maybe go into this area. I can make that area maybe lighter. And notice right here, watch what happens when I drag up. Notice how these values change. See how it's telling me what that value is? It's yellow and green when I was clicking on. So this is really cool. I like that. Then I can scroll down. Or actually, let me go back up to light. And it's a little dark in there, so I might want to add a little bit of, right here in the shadows, I want to add some detail. So I'll go ahead and click on the shadows and see how it lightens that up. Now the difference between shadows and exposure, if I did exposure, it lightens the entire image up. And that's not what I want. I just want certain areas. So I'm going to just do the shadow area. I like that. But then another cool thing, let me go down to, scroll down here. I'm in effects. I can start adding some sharpness and some contrast to this. So if I go to clarity, watch how it really stands out now. So clarity kind of sharpens the image. It sharpens it more in the midtones. So I like that. Now this image is really popping. Then I'll go to dehaze, and dehaze is kind of cool. If you have an image, there's a lot of haze going on. You ever go to a photograph fireworks, and there's a lot of haze in the sky, and it's or there's a lot of smoke, then you lose a lot of clearness. So because that haze, if I click dehaze, that's a really good one for. But I like using it for a dramatic effect, even if it's not. So I like dehaze. Then there's a vignette. I always use a vignette. So I want the center of attention to be right here. So what I'm going to do is I want to darken down the edges, because that's, when you're, trying to present a photo or a video, where's the center of attention? You want to bring your audience's attention to some focal point. In this case, I want it to be right here. That's why I'm going to create a vignette. So if I drag the vignette to the right, it lightens it up. That's not what I want to do. If I drag it to the left, it darkens that down. So now it's nice and moody. But then I have this thing called midpoint. If I drag it to the right, the vignette, gets pushed back more towards the edges. If I drag that midpoint to the left, it brings it into the center. So it really, look how much it changes it from here to there. It's really a world of difference in what what it is that you're trying to communicate. Does that make sense? The what? Oh yeah, so the midpoint, let me do this a really dark amount. So midpoint, if I drag it all the way to the left, see how it's just focused, the midpoint, the more when I drag it to the left, it brings that vignette closer to the midpoint. If I drag it to the right, it goes ahead and the midpoint is now towards the edge. So it just kind of is, what is it that you are looking for? So I get crazy with contrast and vignetting. I like it very, very dark, and harsh. But like I said, vignette is great for, like I said, color photos. You're capturing someone, and you could do this very subtly. So let's say there's a lot of distracting elements going on around people. I'm like, well, how can I blur them out, or how can I not have the people on the side of the image, give them much attention? Just put a slight vignette on it, and so now it just kind of darkens them down, and it brings the center of attention to something that you're more interested in. Now, this is, like every image I do is black and white, uses this thing called split tone. I absolutely, love this. So if I click on where it says split tone, right there, I can tone the highlights and I can tone the shadows. And so what's really cool about this is that when I used to shoot film way back when, is if I wanted to tone my highlights and my shadows differently, I had to bleach my prints, I had to rinse them, and then I would tone the highlights and rinse it, and then let it dry, and then tone the shadows. It was a pain. Now it's really cool. It's like, would take me all day long. Now I can just, in a couple of swipes on my tablet or phone, I can easily do that. So every black and white image that I have, I always tone the shadows. So I just click right down here in the shadows. And right now, it's it's desaturated. So all you're doing is you're just dragging it vertically. You just take it and you drag it straight up, and now you have shadow color. Well, that's a little ridiculous, but I'm actually going to look for a brown. Like I want a sepia tone, so I get it kind of like orange, brown, but that's like way too much. But see, at the top, this is the saturation. And it kind of tells you, see right here it says saturation is 100%. This hue, so it says H stands for hue and S stands for saturation. When it says 24 degrees, that's the position of that hue on the color wheel, and this is how saturated. Well, 100% saturated, that's way too saturated. I just like a little kiss of, color in the shadows. So what I do is I drag that, like I like to go to an extreme point first, and then I bring it down. And so then I just bring it down just. So now I actually have that at 28, and you can actually see what it looks like. And so now it went from a color image to black and white, and now I added a little, I split toned it and put color in the shadow. Does that make sense? You can do this with the highlights as well, but I'm just going to stick with shadows. Any questions about that so far? Okay, so then, whoops, I accidentally, oopsie. Let me bring that down. Okay, so I like that. That works for me. But here's the cool thing. Right down here, the bottom left, and it might be a little different configuration on your cell phone than it is on the tablet, because I know on my Android, it's a little bit different than on the tablet. So if I click here on and I hold it down, I press down, I go. So this is the before, and this is the after. So see how big of a difference that was? And that gives a very different feel to it. And so then I can, like I said, I can, keep doing that again. Okay, so then I can click on, if I click on detail, this is where I can add sharpening if I want to. Click on sharpening, increase the sharpening, and then I like it the way that I want, so everything is good for me. And so when I'm done with this, as soon as I'm done, I can go ahead and I click here, and I can share this with people. I could save it to my camera roll. I can open this in, if I wanted to do some editing, I can actually use one of the Adobe apps. Like but I am not. So I can go ahead and do it on Facebook. I can do it on Instagram or Twitter. But this is Erica's laptop, so I'm not going to share on her account. She might be upset. So then I can go ahead, if I want to, if I really like these things, I can copy these settings and I can paste these to another image. So if I say, okay, you know what? Let me copy these settings, and I choose what I want to bring over, and just click OK. And then I'll go ahead and I'll just say that to the camera roll, and I'm going to use maximum size. So now it renders that. So then if I go to this other image over here, I'm like, oh, I really like that image. I can go ahead, I can click on it, and then I can paste those settings, and then those settings now come over. But you know what? I just want to start working on a color image, so I'm going to click right here to reset. So I'll just reset. and I'll reset to, you know, when I imported it. So what I'd like to do on this image, and before you do anything, you just kind of figure out what is it you want to do. So it's dull, it's flat, you know, the colors don't pop. So I like to, you know, brighten it up, add some saturation to it, maybe a little bit of vignette. I always like vignette. So I'll just start right here. I'll click on the top where it says light. Now, it's pretty light already, and if I want to decrease the overall exposure, I could just drag to the left, and this starts darkening. You don't want to go too far. So I get it to, you know, I think that looks good right there. So I went, maybe I'll go half a stop. I'll bring the brightness down just a half a stop. Then I like contrast, so I'm going to increase the contrast. And so watch what happens. If I increase the contrast, it really gives it some depth, or if I make it flat. So I'm just going to increase the contrast, give it some like depth to there. Highlights, what highlights do, this would be your brightest parts of the image. And so highlights are great if you ever take photos and one part of the image, the highlights are really, really, really bright, and like let's say you take a picture of someone and their face is a little overexposed, then in that case you take the highlights, or like the sky is blown out, you drag that to the left and it will darken those highlights down. Or inversely, you can increase the highlights. Oh, and anytime you want to like reset something, you'll just double click on it. I'll just double click on it, and it will reset that. And so if I want to make the blacks lighter, I can do that, or I can make those blacks darker. So, okay, and so now, if I'm liking it so far, then I click on color. I can change the temperature, the tint, the vibrance, and the saturation. So if you wanted your image to have a more warm tone feel to it, you drag it to the right. Now it warms it up. You know, if I drag it to the left, it'll cool it down. And you can see the sliders. It's a blue to yellow, you know, axis. And so this is, you know, how you would also color correct something. If you photograph something, you're like, whoa, 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 it's too cool of an image. You just, not like too hip, but I mean like it's not as warm. So you just drag it to the right to increase that temperature. Tint would be like, if you look there, I'm like, okay, I think there's a little bit of green in the image that I don't want. I drag it to the right, and it goes towards magenta. If there's too much magenta, I just bring it to green. And this is really just kind of like eyeballing it and see how you like it. But you see this eyedropper right here? If I click on that eyedropper, if I go ahead and I select this point right here, wherever, if I have black or white or middle gray, you know, right now I don't, but if I had something right there and I wanted this to be neutral, I would just put it down on wherever that spot was, and then it'll neutralize based upon that exact point that I clicked on. So this is great if someone has a white shirt, a black shirt, or there's gray asphalt and you want it to be a neutral image. You just take this eyedropper and then move that around. So I'll just go ahead and just warm this up a little bit. Now, vibrance and saturation. Vibrance and saturation are pretty much the same thing. They're both the saturation increase, although saturation doesn't care if something is lightly saturated or heavily saturated. When you increase saturation, it's like all or nothing. And so if you have colors that are already brightly saturated, if you increase the saturation, they're going to get clipped. They're going to go beyond, you know, that color. So vibrance, what vibrance does, it's a saturation boost. So let's say, you know, what I want to do is I want to increase the saturation of the sky. And so what vibrance does is it increases the saturation of the image, but it looks at, you know, skin tones, whether it's someone's light skin, medium skin, or dark skin tones, earth tones, and brightly saturated colors, and says, okay, protect these, you know, values from getting blown out, like getting oversaturated. So if I increase vibrance, Like, look how nice that looks. I can go to a ridiculous amount. I mean, it's too much, but it wasn't as bad as if I went here to saturation. See how ridiculous it looks with saturation? So I usually never use saturation. I just use vibrance, and it keeps it nice. Okay, I like that. Then I can add some effects. I'm a big fan of clarity. Clarity, don't go too high when you're working with people, because then it will start bringing out wrinkles and stuff. But for texture, things like this, it looks like, I like it a lot. See how much it brings out, but be judicious in your use of it. So I like it. Dehaze, you know, will kind of, whee. Okay, that's a little too much. But look at the detail it's bringing out in the sky. So I like that. Like I said, I'm getting a little carried away with the saturation and other stuff, but I just kind of want to show you, you know, what you can do. And then, of course, I'm going to use a vignette, but, you know, maybe I'll be subtle with this. But if I want it something like really dark and moody, I can do that. But sometimes you just want to be judicious in your use of it. So I'm just darkening it down at the edges. Does that make sense? Okay. So then, if I like this, I can go ahead and I can share this, you know, to social media. I can share this to my Lightroom desktop. I can export that original, or I can edit in. Here's the cool thing. Let me go ahead. If I want to edit this, if I click on that, I can go ahead and download the free Adobe mobile app Photoshop Fix. And so I can do liquefy things. I can heal that. It's really cool. And then I'll just go ahead. You know what? I'll just save this to camera roll. I'll do maximum available, and then it's there. And so now, if I'm back in, I'm like, you know what? I really would like to add that photo to this project. So I click on this project, and I wait for it to open up, and I'm like, okay, let me click here. I'm going to add from my iPad, and I added it to my camera roll. It's somewhere in there, or maybe it's, which one did I do? Was it this one? I think that might have been it. So I click ahead here. I shared that, and then in a second, oh, there it is. It's this one. So if I click on there, it's taking a while to upload, but it's right there. And then, yeah, it's thinking. I've got a connection issue, but it's right there, and I can, you know, put it wherever it is that I want to, and it's ready to work with it. So that's how easy it is to work with the Adobe mobile devices, which are free. You know, I can be able to capture that media, bring it into Premiere Clip, finish, you know, do all my editing there. I can add photo effects, video effects in there. I can export it out, share it to my social media, share it to YouTube, share it to the Creative Cloud. I can use Lightroom Mobile to really dive in a little bit deeper with doing photo editing on my cell phone photos or tablet-based photos, and then bring them in, if I want to, into Premiere Clip. And then I can play this, and like I said, I'm just having a little bit of a connection issue, but you get the point. Yes? Excellent question. So, yes, so what sharpening does is, let me go back here. So if I go down to detail, so what sharpening does, and this is how it used to work in film and stuff. You would take, I need to kind of give an explanation of where it came from so you understand what it does. And so actually look at the painting. So the paintings that the old masters did, when they wanted to bring attention, they wanted to bring your focus of attention to a certain area, what they would do is where light area and dark areas hit, they would make the light areas, they would paint it lighter, and the dark areas darker. And so it brings out the contrast. And so now it gave the illusion of something being more sharp. And so what they did in photography is they would take the regular photo and they would make a blurred version of that negative, lay it over each other, and where those edges intersected, it added some enhanced contrast around the edges and made it look sharper. But so digitally, what happens, like in Photoshop or now with Lightroom Mobile, is it looks at those edges where light areas and dark areas intersect, and it says where those edges are, if they're high contrast, when you increase the sharpening, it makes the light areas of the edges sharper or lighter and the dark areas darker. So now it pops out a lot more. So it gives the illusion of being more sharp. And so you'll definitely see it like on text. But if I was to go ahead and let me zoom ahead in here, and so let's look in here, and then let me increase the sharpening. I'm going to go to a ridiculous amount. So that's a little too much. But then if I go down right here, I can see a before and after. And so this is, you can see, you know, some sharpening halos. That's like way too much. But I just want to show you the before and after. So here is after, and here is before. And so so I might have gotten like a little bit, you know, heavy-handed with that. So before, oh, you know what? It's including, yeah, it's doing all my color adjustments. But try to look at it for the sharpening. And so yeah, sharpening, like I said, you want to be judicious in your use of sharpening. It's just to kind of make things, you know, pop a little more. But if you do, like I said, if you do it on skin tones like too much, then it's going to really bring out like any blemishes and like you don't look so sad. Yes.
I apologize because it's not about the mobile app. Unsharp mask.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes.
And what is,
Oh yeah, that's.
I know that's one of I use it, but I don't really know what I'm doing.
Okay, so yeah, it's the same thing. So it's the same. So unsharp mask is the most confusing name ever, and so unsharp. So, fortunately, in Lightroom and Lightroom Mobile, they just put sharpening because unsharp mask. So the reason why it's called unsharp mask is because it came from photography. That's where they would take the regular negative, they would make a blurred negative, and they would lay it over. And so that mask, it's an unsharp version of it that acted as a mask that gave it, and then they would create a third negative. You know, they would create a third negative from the two they would overlay. And when I used to teach at Art Center, I would actually say, okay, I would show them how to do it digitally. You take a regular photo, we apply a Gaussian blur to it, pretend this is the blurred one, and then you could do blending modes, and then those edges like pop out. And so unsharp mask is just, it's digitally making a blurred negative and then stacking the two on top to get a third negative, which is going to be the sharp edges. So that's what, but it's a crazy friggin' name. Yeah, I said friggin'. Okay. Any other questions? Huh?
It deserves it.
Yeah. No. It's just like I remember when I was like back in the day when I was first learning Photoshop. I'm like, what the heck this? And then I'm like, and then when I actually had to do it with film, I'm like, oh, okay, now it makes sense. But, any other questions?
Seize the day.
Seize the day. Yes.
He doesn't have a question, but just for the question today, often we get a lot of amateur photos submitted from sources, and it takes like a lot of time out of my day and trying to stay ahead of things. So I'm really glad that you're learning these tools to be able to edit them yourself before you submit them, because it'll make the process be a lot more easier. So these are great tools, and I really appreciate this.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, and here's something cool because you said you're working with shared files. What's great about this is that you can click on the info of the file. You can see information about that, what settings were used on the camera. You can put a title to that. You can put a caption. And then what's cool is that you could add notes and whatnot. And so then this way, when you're working collaboratively, right, where did this photo come from? Who does it, what are the copyright information on it? What do I need to be aware of when we work collaboratively? This is, it makes it super easy. And then, if someone was working in Lightroom Professional, same thing with Premiere, you just, okay, you know what, let me just share this, and it brings all those settings with it, which makes it so easy, because there are, for most of us, it's like we just want to capture some video, capture some photos, want to be edited really quickly, boom, upload it, and we're good to go. And so if someone's out in the field doing an interview, I got this, but they're going to work collaboratively with someone. Here you go. I did a quick editing, did some photos, and if it's finished, awesome. But if you want to edit it after the fact, you can do that as well. So you're not locked into just the Premiere Clip or the Lightroom Mobile. It can be your terminal point, your endpoint if you want to before you share it, or you can hand it off to the professional applications. But honestly, like a lot of I'm a professional photographer, and about 3 to 4 months I get I go to Hawaii, I get paid to photograph in Hawaii, so it's awesome. But the majority of the time, when I do that, I prefer shooting video and photos with my smartphone because these devices make it so darn easy. I'm like, I could just do everything that I'm used to on the desktop, and I'm like, I don't want to be lugging around like tons of camera. It's like, and especially for for journalists, it's like you have everything available to you. Don't lose your phone when you're out and about. But imagine this was my phone, but everything is right here. You can capture your video, you can capture your stills, you can work on it, and it's like makes life so. Oh, it's right here. So cool. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, and so the reason why it's blurry because your hand holding it. Like, are you talking like?
I'm talking about just in general. If I take a picture of a mess here during the daytime, I see about nighttime usually. I don't know what it is, but my pictures are pretty rough sometimes.
Yeah. So there's a couple of reasons that's happening. So when you're in the daytime, it's like think of exposure on your cell phone or your regular camera as like filling a bucket up with water, and it's like when you're in daylight, you have lots of light getting onto the sensor, and it's like imagine like this you're trying to fill a bucket up with water, and daylight would be a larger hose. You ever had one of those small hoses that take forever and stuff? Oh my gosh. But then you have a larger one. So the larger the hole is on that hose, the quicker that bucket's going to fill up. Same thing with, when you're shooting in the daytime. It's like, think of it as a larger hose, and it's able to get onto the sensor much quicker. But in your nighttime, now that sensor is fighting, trying to get as much light onto that sensor to register that, that data as possible, but it takes a lot longer. So if I was out in the daytime, I just take it and it immediately captures that. But I might have to maybe a second or 2 seconds before it registers onto the sensor. And so that's why if you're going to be shooting stuff in nighttime, you might consider getting a tripod. And then they're very inexpensive, and you put it on the tripod, and then you can shoot it, and you can do an extended, shot, and then it's not going to be as blurry. So yeah, and then there's but yeah, extended exposure on a tripod, and it'll be nice. But it's not, like I said, it's not going to, and there are some really cool things I've seen people do with cell phones. You ever see the stars? When they see, yeah, you could do that on your cell phone and stuff. It's like I used to do it with a toy camera. I took I used to have a Holga. It was used to be a couple dollars, and then I made my own tripod, and I just would hold it open. It was like a toy medium format camera, a couple dollars, and then I can just shoot, let it open for a couple of minutes or an hour, and it just looked amazing. It's so you can use some amazing night shots with a tripod, or if you really like the blurry effect, just do normal. Any other questions? Cool. Has this been helpful?
One other question about because if you do have a very bright light source, the moon or whatever,
oh yeah, it'll blow out.
With the cell phones, it's really hard to do that. Is there any special advice that you might, where you won't get any kind of detail, you'll just get a flashlight effect, that sort of thing?
So that's a good thing. So then when you're at nighttime and you're trying to photograph something, there's that dynamic range plays into effect. You have this really, really, really bright, source of illumination, and everything else is dark. And to make the dark areas lighter, you need a longer exposure. But what happens to those other areas, then yeah, they blow out and stuff. And so what you can do, there are attachments. What people will do is they'll use something called neutral density filters or polarizers, and then you start adding attachments onto here. And so you can add like regular attachments. So then it says like there's the moon and stuff. And what a neutral density filter does is that it blocks light from getting in. And they have it where you can rotate it. So the top part where the moon is will have a neutral density filter that blocks a couple of stops. And so all this area down below is picking up light, but the filter is now blocking out the moon. So now they balance each other out. And so those are really cool. And the attachments that you can get on these are, they're some pretty cool things you can do with that. And like I said, I don't like carrying my camera around. It's like heavy and it's like a pain. Now pretty much most of what I do is here. And like I said, this is where journalism is going. It's like, so you need to know this stuff. Like seriously. And this is like really helpful. Yeah, it's really helpful information. You're going to be so far ahead of everyone else. Like, well, how do we do this? Like, now you know. You just use this. You buy a microphone specifically for your mobile device. But if you already have a professional microphone, then you just get a little adapter, and you already have these adapters available to you. You can put a microphone or a headphone in there so you could hear the audio as you're recording it. That's a professional one. Then you want to edit it, boom, bring it into Premiere Clip, make the changes you want to, add a color effect, add the title, and then you're ready to go. If you want to like really dial in the photos, just bring it into Lightroom Mobile, make your changes, and then you can import it into Premiere Clip. And you can edit these, after the fact. If you want to go back and revisit it, it's easy breezy. And then when you were talking about working collaboratively, click on here's the info. You add the titles, you add the captions, put in copyright information. Say, okay, you know what? I really like this. Put this as a marked image, and so then when you hand it off, people know, oh, okay, here are all of the ones that we liked. And the cool thing about it, if there's working in a collaborative environment, if someone is collecting all of these assets, they can say, okay, I want all of you, when you're shooting it, rate these, do these, and then when when they share them and you bring them into Lightroom, you can filter based upon just the ratings. So say, you know what, I want to see all of the photos that are a 5-star rating, or all the ones that are a 4-star rating. And so now you don't have to sift through these one by one by one by one. You can just see that each one of these, oh, this is a selected image, or we added a star rating to that. You don't have to use a star rating. You can just say, okay, this is a selected one, or you click on it and say, you know what, that is a rejected image. And so that's how you can work collaboratively with each other and save lots of time. Any other questions? I'm here for you. Good. Yeah, so like I said, it's like Eric and I are very, open to, if you guys ask us questions, I'm here Monday, Wednesday, and then other times as well. But if you have any questions, you can email me. My email is rickmillerphotography@gmail.com. rickmillerphotography@gmail.com. Yeah, but it was really exciting, when I was at Adobe, getting to see how people, my job, I traveled across the United States and Canada, and I would teach people how to use the Adobe applications. I teach journalists how to use it, teach media programs how to use it, and I would teach education institutions how to use it. I would see how the applications were being used commercially. So I saw how it was being used, and I would show people how to use it. So it was really exciting, seeing how the technology is used. But I still, Eric and I still, stay in contact with people from Adobe, so we know how it's being used. And so when we're showing you this stuff, we're giving you context. This is where it's going. It's it used to be we worked in siloed environments. If you're a reporter, you would just interview the people. You have a video crew, or then you have a photographer or whatever. You had all these different things, and people worked in siloed environments. Now you're expected to be able to take this device, capture photo, capture video, be able to do it professionally, upload it, work collaboratively with each other. There's no longer siloed environments. And my recommendation to you is learn this stuff, because it'll make you so much more valuable, in today's market. because you'll be so far ahead, of everyone else. Cool? Awesome. I love this stuff. It's fun. Huh?
It shows, and enthusiasm is infectious.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just like, it really is like a lot of fun. I love like tinkering with stuff, and I love like, being creative because it's, it's fun. And you get fun results. Cool.
Thanks for coming, guys, on a Friday.
So enjoy your weekend.